Today we're going to be talking to you about the pros and cons of having an ambulance versus other types of converted vehicles, I guess you could say.
Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to be talking about is the height of the ambulance, or the height of the interior of the ambulance. So Nick cannot stand in the ambulance.
No.
And we obviously knew that before purchasing it, so this is something that we had discussed before buying this type of van. We tested to see if Nick could stand in it, and of course he couldn't, and you know, we had a big discussion about that.
Yeah.
And basically in the end, as you can probably imagine, we came to the conclusion that Nick, I don't want to speak for you, but you said that you didn't care.
No.
Okay, so we went with it anyway, but that is something to consider when you're looking at different types of vans, is if you're comfortable with the idea of not being able to stand in it or being able to stand in it. I can stand in it fine. I don't think I would have settled for something that I couldn't stand in, but you were happy to do that in this circumstance, so.
Yeah.
And of course, this is going to be different for every type of ambulance. Like right now we're talking about this specific ambulance, which was a part of a fleet in British Columbia in Canada. But we've already had comments of people who live in the UK or in like different parts of the US. Some ambulances you can stand in, but that is something to consider. When you're looking at our ambulance build, just know that Nick can't stand up fully in it.
One of the pros of having an ambulance is that the electrical is mostly pre-wired for you. So all the lights in here were already pre-wired. We just had to basically snip off the old ones and wire in the LEDs. Everything's wired to the board in our kitchen area there, so that's all taken care of. Everything's like pre-wired for you. They do snip out a lot of things, like they snipped out the battery charger, so I haven't wired another battery charger in yet. They do snip out the sirens, so that's the main question that we get. Are there sirens? Do the sirens work? Every single person.
Everyone's like, can you turn on the siren?
Yeah, it's wired, like the wire. I found the wires, but I would have to rewire them and then put sirens on, and that's also illegal here. I don't want to get pulled over and get in trouble.
We would never use sirens. It's
and I probably would never use them.
Morally wrong.
Anyways, most of the wiring's done for you, which kind of brings me on to my next point as well, which it comes with auxiliary batteries as well, which is awesome. A super good pro. For us, the auxiliary batteries were kind of nearing the end of their life. They were about 5 or 6 years old, I believe. And then if you've been following us for a while, you know that we left to go to Ontario for last winter,
last year, yeah.
And the batteries cracked, so we had to unfortunately buy 2 new batteries. But if you're looking into if you want to jump right in, the ambulance is already wired for you. It's got the auxiliary power.
We also have heaters back here. We have an air conditioner back here, which came with the ambulance. So
more pros.
Yeah, someone recently asked me about that, like having a separate air conditioner, and that came with the ambulance. So these are all things that come with the ambulance that you know, that you would typically have to pay for if you were doing like a bare bones conversion from a Sprinter or whatever, any kind of van.
If you wanted those things, yeah. So they're kind of perks. Like AC is not, at least living in Canada, it's not something that we necessarily really need. You know, it's not like Arizona or something where it's like you kind of need AC because...
or if you have pets or whatever, like if you have a dog, you're gonna obviously need and you're gonna leave the dog in the van at any point, you're gonna need some type of ventilation or air conditioning or whatever. So that is something that we definitely want to point out, is that the ambulances come equipped with things that you will probably need in a van build, like especially even insulation. We had a whole bunch of, the thing was basically insulated. Yeah. So that kind of brings us to our point of ambulances in general kind of come ready for you to use. So this is something that we talked to a lot of people in our comment section that are like, why did you guys rip everything out of the ambulance? Like, there's no point of an ambulance conversion if you guys are going to do that. People get very upset about that, because I think that the reason people get upset about that is because people purposely buy ambulances because you can just use the stuff that's already in the ambulance. So it comes with cupboards that don't move around when you drive. The floor is already done. Like there's like a rubber floor.
Yeah, like I've seen like there's a skateboarder in Vancouver, Andy Anderson, and he basically, his ambulance on the inside is just like one small bed, and then it's mostly kept the same as far as I could tell. And
we met that guy in Half Moon Bay as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we met another guy in Half Moon Bay, and same sort of thing. You know, it was just basically stripped out, like just the kind of stuff on the outsides, and then It was just a bed in the back,
toilet, a hot plate,
toilet underneath, yeah, hot plate, sink, and then a little like diesel heater.
Yeah.
So you know, you can keep them really basic and really simple, and you know, as long as you don't mind it not being the most aesthetically pleasing, unless you like that. I mean, it's all objective, I guess, or subjective, But you know, you can make it really simple and really easy, and get your build done really, really fast, which is
and cheap.
And cheap, exactly, which is a massive pro of having an ambulance. You know, if you want to just jump right into van life and just, you know, get going.
For us, so we'll just address this quickly now. For us, we always had the plan of what the van was going to look like aesthetically, kind of on the inside when it comes to like the colors and the layout and all that. And when we were shopping for a van, we weren't particularly looking for any sort of van. We just wanted it to look how we wanted it to look in our heads, because we've never owned a house or anything. We've never been able to decorate things how we want it to be done. So we really felt like if we were going to be putting like time and labor into doing any sort of conversion, we wanted it to look really nice.
We wanted it to feel like a home.
Yeah, and that
like
was
our home.
Yeah, that was important for us to really personalize it. So we stripped it to the bare bones. And yeah, some people are going to be upset about that, but hey, we love our van conversion. It's a pretty simple conversion, and I think that it was worth it for us to make those types of adjustments. But yeah, if you don't have the time or money, or if you just aren't interested or you don't care, you can just leave all the cupboards in, and the floor and the insulation would probably work fine in most climates, and just live in it as is. Like,
our ambulance is like kind of like a one-off. Not a lot of people do this to ambulances.
No, a lot of people don't do this to ambulances. We kind of did what you see like online for like Sprinter conversions. We did that inside of an ambulance. So this is more rare. But although, like, that, all that being said, we saved a lot of money because this conversion was only $6,000, and a lot of the conversions that you see online are much more than that. So we'll talk a little bit more about price later.
So a bit of a con about the ambulance, most ambulances come with fairly high kilometers. So ours came with 337,000 kilometers on it, which I know sounds like a lot. It is a Chevy engine though, as I've said in other videos. They're very reliable engines. Just the Chevy V8, whatever comes in the G3500 front end, I believe. So they're really, really reliable engines, especially if you maintain them well. And being that this is an ambulance, every 5,000 kilometers the fluids were drained and everything's replaced. The brakes are constantly being checked. Tires are always being checked. So everything's really, really well maintained right up until the day that they can't use it anymore, which I think if it gets to a certain amount of kilometers, might be 400,000 kilometers, then they have to retire, and then I think I was reading after a certain number of years, I believe it's 8 years. So as far as I understand, this one just came up at the end of its life. It's 2011, so came up on the 8 years. Had to get rid of it.
Just by government regulation.
But it's government regulation.
It's not that they like stopped working. It's just that as per the government regulation. And again, this is going to be different no matter where you're living. But here in BC, they retired them at 8 years, and then here we are.
Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I just read this on an ambulance forum, so I could be totally wrong. Maybe I was reading in a different area.
But the point is that they retire them because of a certain regulation, not because they're unusable anymore. Yeah.
But like our ambulance came with all the fluids were topped up. As for like brakes and the tires and everything like that, they were all brand new. We checked those out, and the brakes are brand new, tires are brand new. So everything is really well maintained, but it's high kilometers on an engine. But that doesn't really mean anything. High kilometers don't mean anything if you're really taking care of your engine.
The only thing is that when you're buying it with high kilometers already, obviously you have to think about if you're ever going to sell it, like the resale value kind of goes down a lot, because if we're starting at like 350,000 kilometers, is that how many we had?
337.
Yeah, 337 kilometers, and then we're driving it around for like a few years, and then if we do decide to sell it, then obviously like the value is just going to go down, because people are weird about kilometers. People don't want vehicles with high kilometers typically. So that is something to consider when you are thinking about purchasing an ambulance or just like an ex-government vehicle at all.
So for us personally, this was a massive pro, the shape of the ambulance. So this doesn't really apply if you're not sinking, you're not stripping it bare bones and building a bunch of stuff into it, it doesn't really apply. For us it does, because we stripped it bare bones, and as you can see, we've modified everything. So the fact that it's everything's 90 degrees is super helpful for building. So building our cabinets, building, you know, the bed up against the walls, like everything being square is, I'm sure as any carpenter would tell you, is massively helpful. Instead of having to work in, you know, some Sprinter vans, they're kind of sloped, so you have to cut all of your cupboards or anything that you're putting up against the wall to that slope. I'm not a carpenter myself. I was already so burnt out learning about electrical and stuff. Even though a lot of it was already wired, there was so much I had to learn, and I couldn't imagine then having to work with sloped edges and, you know, build things that are that custom to a Sprinter or something with sloped edges.
God, anyone who watched her build knows that, like, we had the most unconventional build. We're like, we'll build this, like, kitchen cabinet today, and then the next day we'll build the bed frame. It was
measure,
just all
a lot of it was
over
measure once, cut twice, so it was,
yeah, it was not, like, there was no rhyme or reason to our build whatsoever. It was
just winging it.
Yeah,
turned out nice, so I think I like it, so
we're the ones who have to live in it, so who cares?
You don't have to live in it, so we like it.
So something else that I really want to talk about in this video is the stealthiness of having an ambulance versus having, like, a different kind of van. And we keep bringing up Sprinters because, of course, on YouTube there are just so many Sprinter vans, but you can take this for whatever, like, you can take this and apply it to whatever kind of van that you're thinking of getting.
This isn't an ambulance versus Sprinter thing, it's just our ambulance
in general. And we're going to talk about kind of school buses here too, because what we've really realized, like, living for the first time in a van and, you know, going to different cities and parking wherever, trying to figure out the whole parking thing, having an ambulance, it's kind of hard to explain because as much as it looks like kind of stealth from the outside, it could just be a work truck. We have a lot of eyes on our van always, so no matter where we go, like, we have been stopped so many times to talk about our ambulance. People always notice it and point it out, and they want to talk about it. We're super recognizable, so if we were to stay, like, in a residential neighborhood, I know it's like poo-pooed upon, but whatever, who cares? For a night or two, people are going to be like, oh, that's the ambulance. Like, even right now, we're staying at a friend's place, and we go to the grocery store, and people who live in this community are like, oh, are you parked at so-and-so street? Because I recognize your ambulance, and everyone always wants to talk about the ambulance. Yeah. Even going to campgrounds or whatever, people are always talking to us about the ambulance, which is fine because we're happy.
Do the sirens work? What does it look like on the inside?
What does it look like on the inside? Yeah. Everyone's always asking to see on the inside or whatever. Yeah. So it's just like, it really depends. If you don't want any attention, I wouldn't recommend getting an ambulance because everybody wants to talk about it because it's interesting.
If you had a reflective vest on, I think you could probably get away with it.
But when you get out, like, looking like us, like, you look how you do, and I had, like, the pink hair, like, you know, you get out of the ambulance and people are like, what is going on? And everyone kind of wants to know the story. I do kind of envy the stealthiness of having a Sprinter or, like, even just a smaller van, but
there's just so many, like,
we see Sprinters everywhere.
Even ones that have roof vents on top, like, some of them are, like, work vans and stuff. Like, it's
or, like, transport buses or whatever. Like,
they can get away with it a lot more, but an ambulance is such a unique vehicle that it draws people's eyes in, and then you immediately look up to the top, and then you'll see solar panels and a roof vent, and then we're hopping out, and it's a
big conversation always. Like, we're always having the conversation.
Most people, we usually have eyes on us.
Whereas I feel like if you were just, like, parking in a Sprinter van, it just looks like it looks like any other work vehicle. We see Sprinters everywhere, and even for us who are living inside of a van, we have, like, eagle eyes on van life. We're like, oh, are those people living and doing it too? And you can't really tell Sprinters. Yeah. And so this is when I want to talk about, if you're considering getting a short school bus, this is something, or a full-size school bus, which is a whole different ball game. This is something to really actually consider. Yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe people do have an easier time. Maybe I'm just missing something, but finding parking is not always easy. And
even in this is like
a
few feet longer. I think it's 21 feet the length. So we can, like, just squeeze into most parking spots. You kind of poke out a little bit, but you can get away with it. But, like, you know, any longer, and we'd be pretty hard pressed to find parking almost anywhere. So
I mean, at least where we are, I don't know where these people online are all parking, but hey, that's fine.
All the power to you, man.
I'm not hating. I want to know, but yeah, it's just something to consider. If you are doing it for the first time and you are like us and maybe not be able to find parking in magical places all the time, like, that's something to consider.
Maybe it's different in BC, I don't know. So this one is a con, sort of. It's a pig on gas, which is a con, because it's a V8.
We fill up a lot.
Yeah, we do fill up a lot, and it's a relatively big tank, so a lot of money goes into gas. On the other hand, it's not as bad as a school bus, which, I mean, I haven't looked into school bus engines, but I would assume they're, you know, V10, V12, maybe even, like, I would assume they're pretty big engines. I could be wrong. Again, let me know if I am. It's a middle ground between a Sprinter van and a school bus, I feel like. It's
so tricky, right? Because if you say, like, okay, but if you just spend a little more on your van, you will have to spend less on gas over time. But, like, at the time, we didn't have any more money to spend on our van. We just didn't have that. And people say stuff like that all the time. They're like, oh, just invest a little bit more. But I'm like, this was all of our money. This was all the money that we had. So we didn't really have that opportunity.
You can say you coulda, shoulda, woulda with anything, but
and also, like, how much money are you really saving on gas? But yeah, if you're wondering if it's bad on gas, yeah, it is. Do we love the gas and oil industry? No, we don't. Do we wish that it took less gas? Yes. We have been seeing some hybrid ambulances around, so I'm waiting the 8 years to get our hands on one of those. Yeah, that'd be really cool if we could get our hands on one of those hybrid ambulances. Those are sick. This was one of our cheaper options. And, like, these things are really expensive, we learned. Before resale, or... Yeah, if what I learned is correct, they're like $200,000, like the whole machine when it's, you know, brand new. So, you know, after 8 years, you put a lot of kilometers in the engine, but all the stuff's still in it. Like, still a really capable machine, and it's a reliable machine, and it is worth... it is worth a lot of money, you know, because it's coming from the government. It's sold for quickly and for much less value than somebody else might sell it for, and we feel really safe in it because, like, these things. Have you ever watched ambulance, like, rolling videos? Because, I mean, now I've just exposed myself. I've watched, like, crash tests and stuff of ambulances. Well, I was curious. I didn't know that. These things are they're built to take an impact. So imagine, you know, a roll cage in a vehicle. It's a similar thing, you know. It's meant to protect the patient that's in here if any kind of an accident does happen. So totally, they're a really safe vehicle, and they're reliable. So those are kind of our pros and cons of purchasing an ambulance, and kind of what we learned while building the ambulance. There's obviously so much to learn, but those are kind of like our top things and what we would want to tell you if you're considering buying an ambulance. Again, all of them are always gonna be different depending on where you are in the world, and even for us here, like, interprovincially, we've noticed that ambulances look different in all these different cities that we've lived in. So it's gonna be different for everyone, but those are the most general tips I think that we could tell someone if they're considering buying an ambulance. Ambulances are diverse. They come in many shapes and sizes. And we love them all equally. We do love them. We love ours, but we love all ambulances equally. That's not true. I love ours the best. But yes, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please let us know if you have any questions about having an ambulance in the comments below. By the way, I'm standing right now, so I'm really exposing my height. Say goodbye. Okay. Okay. Bye. Bye.